Welcome to Keen on Retirement, a show dedicated to helping you thrive before and during your retirement years. If you are looking to grow and protect your wealth and want to make the second half of your life the best half, then listen in as wealth advisor Bill Keen sorts through the key issues that you need to know in a lively and candid way.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Keen on Retirement. I'm your co-host, Steve Sandusky, and today, Bill, we have a very special guest. Who is our guest today, Bill?
Yes, we do, Steve, and I would say she is a very special guest. She's a special guest on our program here today, and she's a very special person to me as well, so she's doubly special. We have Carissa Keen, my wife, on the program with us today. And I'm super excited that she was willing to step into our studio and take the time to share about some of the charitable work that we're doing here at Keen Wealth and some of the ways that we think about how we execute on those programs across the board here with our team and in our community. So just really excited to have you here, Carissa, and excited to have you, Steve, walk through, how we do one of our programs with the lovely Carissa on today.
And Carissa, I think this is your second time on the podcast. I think the first time we had my wife Linda was with us, and we were in the office there. So it's been too long since you've made an appearance here.
It was many years ago, but I enjoyed that very much, and I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, well, we're thrilled to have you. And let's start. Let's get a little bit more on your background. And so we are going to be talking about the charitable work that Keen Wealth Advisors has been doing all these years, and you're the executive director of the Keen Wealth Foundation, so we're definitely going to get into that. And one of the reasons why we want to have this conversation today is not only to talk about the work that Keen Wealth Advisors is doing when it comes to supporting the community, but also many of the clients of Keen Wealth Advisors are very charitable. And so we're going to talk about some of the ways that the clients can contribute, and you've got a nonprofit evaluation checklist that you go through, which we're gonna talk about here in just a little bit, and I think it'll help the listeners think about how they want to evaluate organizations that they may want to contribute to. But we'll get to that here in a few minutes here. So let's start with you, Carissa. Tell me a little bit about your background. It's not like you're new to doing charitable work. You've been doing charitable work for many, many years. So tell me, take me back to some of the early days.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the things that my parents did that was really good for my character development is they had me do a lot of volunteering when I was a kid. So all through the summers, I was volunteering. By the time I graduated high school, I had hundreds of hours of volunteer work under my belt. And partly, I think that is because, again, they wanted to help me to develop life skills. But also, I think that it was a little bit of free supervision and kept me out of trouble for the most part. So I spent my summers working at North Kansas City Hospital as what they used to call a candy striper. My mom happened to be the head nurse of ICU. And this was before HIPAA. So one of the things that was pretty interesting is I held a lady's hand while she was getting her leg put in traction. She had been in a car accident and her daughter was taken over to Children's Mercy. And I was the same age as her daughter. So I held her hand. And then a few weeks later, we got a call from the Kansas City Star and they wanted to feature me in a newspaper article. So I remember being quite embarrassed when my 7th grade English teacher said that she saw me in the newspaper because they had called me a brown-eyed angel with braces on her teeth. So I wasn't too excited about that at that age. But I also did a lot of other volunteering. Some local Kansas City organizations that people might be familiar with would be Della Lamb. They had an early childhood development center. So I would go at 11 years old and help take care of the kids. And something else that I did that had a great impact on me was I spent a lot of time in nursing homes. And I would just go in and talk to the residents and they would tell me their life stories. And so I always appreciate taking the time to listen to someone who's been through much more life than me to share their wisdom.
Well, speaking of that, spending time in the nursing homes, is there any story or experience from that time that still sticks in your mind today? Any words of wisdom or insight that someone may have shared with you?
Well, just something that I noticed is that people are still uh, social. It's so important for people's health to continue to be social. And so it was a long time ago, but I have memories of people playing the piano, um, engaging, going and being part of groups that they were all singing together. And so I just think that no matter where uh, people are in life, or even like the state of their mind, people have this innate desire and drive to want to connect with others. So I think that was one of my biggest takeaways.
And so here you are. You're now the executive director of the Keen Wealth Foundation. So tell me a little bit about how the foundation got started and what that means to Keen Wealth Advisors.
Sure, sure. Well, I was speaking with Bill about this before we hopped on here. And before Bill and I got married, I was working at Blue Cross and Blue Shield doing wellness programming, and health and wellness is a big passion of mine. And I really enjoyed it. But we also had small kids, and he said, you don't have to work anymore if you don't want to. You could be there to get our kids off the bus. And I really enjoyed that for several years. But as they started to become older and more independent, I realized that I wasn't overall satisfied with my life. And I think that we see that with a lot with our clients when they retire. It's like, what are you retiring to? So that's a big part of the financial planning that is done at Keen. And I realized that I needed to do something that made an impact. And so Keen is very generous. Every one of our team members just oozes compassion and generosity. It's a big part of our culture. So because of that, we already worked with a lot of organizations, going and volunteering, going to different fundraisers. And I started to just take a few steps to get involved with different organizations. And some of the best advice that I have received is when someone asks you to do something, just say yes. You don't have to know how to do it, but just say yes. So I started to take on small projects. And over the years, it's become quite the full-time endeavor. And I think it to be quite fortuitous given my upbringing and all of the volunteer work that I did, that now this is something that I get to do with my time. I'm very fortunate.
So walk me through a day in the life. So I'm sure every day is a little bit different, but what are some examples of the types of things that you're doing? And I'd love to hear that.
A recent day that comes to mind was when I was working with the girls from the Northland Boys and Girls Club. When I was at UPenn doing my social impact strategy certificate, I met a gentleman by the name of Brian Weisfeld, and he started up an organization called the Startup Squad. And he wrote several books about how helping girls to start to think like entrepreneurs. And he wrote these books because he had girls himself, and he was tired of reading them stories about ponies and princesses. So he wrote these books, and then he started this foundation, and he has a program called the Startup Squad Get Down to Business program. And so there's a whole curriculum that goes along with this program, and there's a book that goes along with it. So there is a literacy component. So I spent the summer 2 days a week going over to the Boys and Girls Club and working with these young girls. And they learned all about how to start up a business, from the inception of an idea to product development, price, promotion. In fact, all of these girls could give you their elevator speech. If I ask them, who are you? They'll say, I'm an entrepreneur. If I say, who are you with? They say, I'm with the Boys and Girls Club. What are you a part of? I'm a part of the Startup Squad, and this is my business. And they can tell you all about their business. So the program culminated with us taking 3 different businesses. And of course, one of the products was slime. So that was quite fun to make. And we sold our products at the Parkville Farmers Market, and they made their own money, and they left with more confidence and realizing that if they have an idea, they might not know how to make that idea into a reality, but they know that with their minds and with the resources they have available to them, that they can persevere.
A couple of things I want to follow up with on what you just said there. So one is, I think it's really important that we all understand that when it comes to philanthropy and charitable endeavors, it's not just money. It's not just
Right.
writing a check and helping an organization financially, which is very important, of course. But what you just described there was it's your time. You're physically out with these people. You're taking them to the farmers markets. You're helping them get involved. You're helping them become entrepreneurs. And so it's actually spending time with people. And I think that as listeners think about what they want to do from a charitable standpoint, it's like, how much of my effort here is going to be like writing a check versus how much is going to be physically being present with these people. Like you mentioned earlier, going to the nursing home and holding a woman's hand, or being in the hospital, holding a woman's hand. It's like, those are the moments that are absolutely priceless. Right. And so I think it's important that we really think about, how do we want to think about that? A second thing that I don't want to slide by here is, I heard you say University of Pennsylvania. So did you take some kind of class there or program there? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So I've done a few things. Several years ago, I took a women's executive leadership program, and my mind was just on fire. I really enjoyed it. And so then later, when I started to get more involved in these charitable activities, I wanted to pursue some additional education, and especially because people would ask me questions, and we wanted to be intentional about our giving here at Keen, and Bill and I's personal giving. And so I found a cohort it's called this Center for High Impact Philanthropy at the University of Pennsylvania. And I received a certificate in high impact philanthropy. Also, I did a 9-month certificate program in social impact strategy. And so most of it was online, but we did also get to go to campus. And I sort of got to live my dreams out there of going to an Ivy League, and there were a lot of connections, a lot of education that I still use to this day. I'll even reference materials back, but it's something that I've been able to use in the work that we're doing here.
And Carissa, your women's executive leadership program was actually out at University of Penn as well, at the Wharton School of Business.
That's correct.
Wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Pretty cool.
So you mentioned a certificate in high impact philanthropy. Now, I know historically, wealthy people would write a check, and then the organization would sort of do what they would do with the check. In more recent times, and I'm thinking people, particularly in Silicon Valley, who are very performance oriented, and a lot of Wall Street people as well, as they have thought about their philanthropy strategy, it sort of comes with some strings attached in one respect, in that if they're going to give money, they want to know that there's like some measurable outcomes or some measurable results with the money that they're contributing to this organization. Was that at all part of the training and the education that you got at Wharton or at the University of Pennsylvania? Is that sort of this idea of high impact philanthropy, or what does that actually mean?
Sure. Well, in regards to what you're speaking about, when you're thinking about making a donation to an organization or getting involved in any way, you want to properly vet the organization. And we have a checklist that we can go through and we can attach to the show notes as well. When it comes to giving, you can make two different types of gifts. You could make an unrestricted gift to the organization, especially if you trust the organization and you want them to be able to use that gift for whatever they need. Those are the types of gifts that they appreciate the most. Or you can make a restricted gift to the organization that is supposed to go to something. So maybe you see a need. For example, the program that I talked about with the Boys and Girls Club, we made a donation to the Startup Squad Foundation in order to quote unquote purchase their curriculum to use. And we restricted that gift for that program. So that's one way that you can go about it.
Okay. So let's go into this checklist since you mentioned it here. And let's say that I do want to get involved. Let's say I want to contribute financially to an organization. How should I go about thinking about, well, who do I actually want to contribute to? Who do I want to get involved with?
Well, I think it's important to think about your own values and what's important to you, and then pursue going forward. For me personally, I was a single mom for a lot of years. So something that is important to me would be, for example, the organization Happy Bottoms. They provide free diapers for families in need. And that's something that I could have used when I was a young mom. And so I feel very passionate about that organization. And so it's pretty simple. You don't have to have any formal education to vet these organizations. And there's some specific tools and resources out there. The tool that I have that we'll include in our show notes is a nonprofit evaluation checklist. And so what I would do is I would pull up the organization's website, and I would also pull up either charitynavigator.com or GuideStar and search for this organization. Those two places are where you are going to get a lot of information. So you'll be able to find out, do they have a clear and compelling mission statement? What are their programs? Do their programs align with their mission? Do they measure their impact and their outcomes? Do they have stories and data that show that the community is meaningfully served? Do you want me to just start to kind of go through this checklist slightly, or you can interrupt me for examples or
Go
questions?
through. Yeah. Why
Sure.
don't you go through, hit some of the highlights here? And I think one of the things I'm also interested in here as it relates to the checklist is I think some organizations spend a lot of the money that they receive on marketing to try and get more money. So are there some best practices when it comes to charities in terms of, is there like a maximum percentage that they should be spending on marketing to bring in more money?
Mhm.
I want to hear about some of the sort of maybe it's the governance or some of the financial things that we should be looking out for to make sure that the majority of the money is going to serve the purpose of the organization.
Sure.
And
So
I like, Carissa, what you said there. Steve asked earlier about the high impact philanthropic giving, and what you literally just mentioned. Do they have a measurable impact? Are they measuring some of their results? And I think as charities evolve, some are very new, and there's so many good causes out there, so many. But as they grow and evolve in their maturity, are they taking the time to measure the results to be able to provide donors and potential donors that information? You've touched on that, and I believe I believe your entire checklist, which Steve she shared with our Keen Wealth Community Impact Committee here in the entire firm, this checklist. So everyone at Keen Wealth, all of these very generous team members that we have, are on the same page with how we speak about these things. So these things that Carissa is talking about today are things that she has trained our team to look out for, to understand, to have the semantics, to be able to communicate back and forth with. And we've had so many clients ask us, gosh, we'd like to understand about how you all think about it. So I thought it was important to say, I think this entire checklist speaks to the high impact aspect to your earlier question. I really do.
So I'm going to try to just speak to both of the things that, or both of you. As far as high impact philanthropy, another example of that would be to think about how you can use your own experience and talents to make a difference in the organization, and high impact would be making a sustainable difference, something that is long lasting. So an example of that would be when we worked with Happy Bottoms. I've been to a lot of events myself. I've been on several event committees. And so I asked them if I could take a look at their event and help them to maximize their fundraising at that event. It was the Diaper Bowl. And so I looked at their sponsorship levels and I said, hey, your sponsorship levels are low. I think that you could ask your sponsors to come in at a higher level. They're just low across the board from what I've seen. And so that's something that is a sustainable change going forward. They're going to be asking for $10,000 sponsorship rather than a $7,500 sponsorship because I've shared with them that they can, and they were humble enough to take that advice. And I think they actually raised more money at that event than they ever have. So that's an example, is to try to find ways to make a sustainable impact. Steve, when you were talking about the financial health, that is something that you can get that information either off of their website. If they give an annual report, that should be on their website. If you become involved with them, you could get on their distribution list and you should receive that. Or you can go on to Charity Navigator or GuideStar and you'll be able to see all of those financial metrics, and you'll be able to have access to their 990 form. So if you're looking at financial metrics on one of those websites and it doesn't make sense, then you can go and dig a little deeper by looking at their 990 form. And you should be able to see what their program to expense ratio is, for example, and how much they're paying their administration. It does sometimes, take money to make money. So you can go and you can look at the nitty gritty on the 990 and you can find out how much did they spend on marketing and how much did they make even at a particular event. Another thing that we like to look at is how much they're paying their administration. So we want to make sure that when we're working with organizations that we are not perpetuating the cycle of poverty. So it doesn't necessarily scare us away if 35%, for example, of their revenue is going towards paying their employees. You do want to see a number like between 65 and 70% at least that is going towards programs. But if you want to dig into it a little bit more, those websites and specifically going through the 990 form is where you're going to get specific information. You can also find out have they done their audits. Organizations that receive over $750,000 in federal funding, they're required to have a yearly audit. In Kansas, if they receive over $500,000 in any kind of funding, they're required to be audited. I wanted to make the point as well that some organizations are new. And so if you are investing into a newer nonprofit, you have to realize that they're still building out this framework. Right. And so you might not have easy access to this information. However, nonprofits are not like private businesses. You can call up a nonprofit organization and you can speak to the development officer or the executive director. And as a potential donor, you have every right. And in fact, they will welcome you calling and asking these questions, and they'll look at it as a gift to be able to start to build a relationship with you.
And how do you think about national charitable organizations versus ones that are more local? And in your, let's say, your personal experience at Keen Wealth, how do you guys think about, do we want to support local? Do we want to support national? Do we do both? And what advice do you have for folks listening in terms of how they think about whether they want to go local, regional, or national, or even international?
Great question, Steve. There's no right or wrong answer. It's really what resonates with you the most. Typically at Keen, we're working with organizations locally, and that is specifically because we want to put boots on the ground. We want to be able to take all of our team members and spend the day painting a building at VCP or packing lunches or snack bags for kids at Harvesters. That's a big part of our culture. So that's why we do mostly local at Keen. But again, it's just discovering what resonates with you the most. And there's no wrong way to go about it.
Well, Carissa, I could spend the rest of this conversation just talking to you, but I know Bill is over here as well, and he's probably chomping at the bit for me to ask you something about this as well. And so I want to ask you about the tax implication of charitable giving. Now, we're not suggesting that you should be giving to charities because you're getting the tax break. You know, the rules and regulations are such that there are definitely some advantages to giving to charity from a tax standpoint. So we don't have to go into too much detail,
Sure.
but give me just a little bit of the high level in terms of if people are thinking charitably, there are better ways, more effective ways where you can make your charitable dollars go farther, or maybe you'll be able to give more if you know it's going to reduce your tax bill. So tell me how that works.
Sure. So it's interesting. There's several tools that folks can use to supercharge their giving, exactly like you said, Steve. One of those that's become very common now, and even a lot of some of the very large families and even some of the family foundations have decided to use a tool called the Donor Advised Fund. And the Donor Advised Fund is a way to create an entity, to name that entity, whatever you'd like, the Sandusky Family Foundation, the Sandusky Giving Fund, you could name it whatever you choose. You can make contributions into that Donor Advised Fund, and ideally, you're using highly appreciated securities. So securities that you may held in a brokerage account that have appreciated. You can donate those securities. Let's say you paid $10 for a stock many years ago, at least 1 year ago. They need to be long-term holdings, which means 1 year and a day. And that stock is now worth 50. Let's say you've held it and you're able to donate that stock and you get the full deduction for the value of 50. You only paid 10 for it. So you never paid capital gains on the 40 in my example. And the charity gets the entire 50. No one ever pays capital gains on that 50. You get to put that money into your Donor Advised Fund. You get the deduction in the year you make that contributions to the Donor Advised Fund, but you don't have to pay it all out in that given year. So you can make some large donations into your Donor Advised Fund. And if you happen to be, if you're not itemizing on your income taxes, you know, a married couple, the itemization, I think, now what do we said in our prior episode, Steve, 90% of America, maybe more, does not itemize. They take the standard deduction. So if you're giving underneath the standard deduction throughout the year, whether to your church or other charities that are close to your heart, you may not be getting any tax benefit from it because it's not above your standard deduction. So in years where you decide, hey, we want to make 3 or 4 or 5 years of our donations into a Donor Advised Fund in 1 year to push yourself well above your standard deduction, get a tax benefit from it, and then take your time. You invest that money inside the Donor Advised Fund. It can actually grow inside the fund, and you take your time over the future years deciding where to make grants to various charities that are close to your heart. That's one way that's really cool. It's really taken on a lot of momentum, and a lot of our clients here at Keen, we are able to custody those here at our custodian that we use, Charles Schwab, and make it really easy on folks to evaluate charities, to look at charities, to make grants to charities, and really formalize that process, really involve your families in these processes, and create some cohesion around your process. There's also something called a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution. Once somebody hits 70 and a half, they're able to make contributions out of their IRA accounts directly to charities and keep that off their taxable income, which avoids Medicare surcharges and other things. And I know you said don't get too technical here. There are ways to be really thoughtful, and again, not because you're getting a tax deduction are we giving, but you want to be a good steward of your resources and just be aware of these things that are available that can give, that can supercharge your giving from a tax standpoint as well.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So really two key things here. There's others, but just
Sure.
a couple to sort of whet people's appetite here. One is the Donor Advised Fund, super easy. And then the other was the QCD. So if you're over, is it 70 and a half now? Is that
It is
the age?
70 and a half. It's a little confusing because that used to be the RMD age, and then they've moved the RMD age out, required minimum distribution, all these acronyms. Here we are again, QCD, RMD, DAF, Donor Advised Fund. We have a lot of those in our industry. But so they've moved the required minimum distribution age out, but left the ability to do the qualified charitable distributions at that 70 and a half. So,
okay.
But which is why we want to have financial planner helping folks understand these rules,
Right.
of course.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because when people give, we want you to give smartly,
For
right?
sure.
We want to make sure that you're going to give as many dollars as the rules allow you to, and that is going to benefit the charity. So there's smart ways to do this and less smart ways to do that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Well, Chris and Bill, as we get ready to wrap up here, I know one of the things that you have at Keen is the Keen Impact Community Committee. And tell me a little bit about that. And then also, if there's anything else that we haven't touched on here, I'd love to hear that as well.
Uh, Sure. So I mentioned before that it's a really big part of our culture and is in our blood to be generous. And in fact, studies show that it's really important for team members and clients to work with organizations who are generous. And we kind of had been a little bit all over the map. We've
Mhm.
worked with several different organizations, and we didn't want to assume at a leadership level that these organizations that we're choosing are the ones that our team members want to work with. So, what we did to make sure that we are representing their interests and values is we created the Keen Community Impact Committee. So, we have several members who were nominated to be on the committee, and during our first meeting of the year, we will vet several different organizations. So we'll look at 10 local charities and we'll go through this checklist, and we will narrow it down to 3 different organizations. It's also a really good opportunity for leadership with certain members in the committee, because they will then go present to our entire firm on each charity, and then the firm votes via a ranking system which charity they would most like to be our Keen Community Impact Partner of the Year. So that's sort of the process. And then we're doing all kinds of things. For example, this year, the Farmers House, which is an organization that helps youth and adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities. And I think it's been mentioned on this podcast before, the Farmers House. They became our Community Impact Partner of the Year. And they're amazing. They do catering. So they've come in and they've catered. We just hosted Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift / Chiefs themed dance with them, because they also do a lot of
Now, were
social.
Travis and Taylor at the event?
Oh my gosh. I was starting to think she was really teasing there with that.
Oh,
Themed
We were just
event.
dressed like them.
themed event.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it was so much fun, and it was such an important work too, because again, the social aspect of life is important to everyone, and it was really beautiful there to see couples and people just engaging, and just to bring home the fact that every life is valuable. We've also done mock interviews here with the beneficiaries of this organization to help them improve their job skills, because they want to go out and work and contribute to society. But this is the organization that our team members chose. So it helps us to know, again, that we're really representing their interests and values and what's important to them. Bill, what's been your perspective on the Keen Community Impact Committee?
Well, I think that the momentum that's gone behind really including the team in the process has been extremely powerful. I'm awed. It's funny. Maybe I'm an emotional person, but I brought to tears of gratitude so many times when I see the power of the team step up behind these organizations. I think we had no less than 15 to 18 team members there at the Farmers House dance here a few weeks ago. Ryan, one of our awesome planners here, had been a DJ in college, so he had one of our other team members, Robin's husband, had some mixer board and some big speakers because he's in a band. So that was there, and Ryan was mixing. He had his headset on. He was the DJ. We had, again, I can't name them all by name or we'd be here too long. People were setting up. Bailey here at our office does a fantastic job, and I hesitate to mention names because then I leave out names. But just everyone at Keen rallies behind these operations, and these initiatives. And, we're talking about, I think that was on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
Folks left the office early to get set up. They had created all these decorations. I don't think we left till 8:30 or 9 that night from this facility up north where this was held. And no one's batting an eye at saying, hey, this isn't during work hours or we're having to go work extra here. People are rallying behind, raising their hands, wanting to be involved in these things, whether it's the Veterans Community Project or the Angel Flight Central or you mentioned Harvesters or Happy Bottoms, or there's so many of these organizations, Boys and Girls Club, Kansas City Girls Prep Academy. It's just, we have an event coming this Friday night. Well, we were just at the Kansas City Girls Prep Academy here last week on Friday night. And then this week we have a Farmers Gala that we're sponsoring, it kind of as their Community Impact Partner of the Year. We really step up and we try to make an impact, like we were talking about earlier, like a meaningful impact, and not just financially, but with boots on the ground. The leadership of Farmers House let us know that they said, guys, you have shown us what a company can do, like how a true partnership can work. And we're going to take this framework and we're going to talk about it to other businesses and companies to say, hey, this is what the Keen Wealth team did. This is something we could replicate if you'd like to be our partner of the year. So speaking earlier to what you said about making an impact where it's not just we show up and then we're out. We help folks create these things that last forever, which really is a ripple effect that none of us will know what that has on organizations. And just because somebody's a partner of the year doesn't mean that we don't support them going forward. Of course, we continue to support these organizations going forward, but we really like to have that highlight of one organization each year. And then like I said, a plethora of probably 16, maybe 15, 16 other organizations that we do support throughout the year. But I would just say that in honor of the Keen team here, that spirit of generosity, which is not something that we're pushing down on the firm. It's who we are and how we live it out. That it makes me immensely grateful for the team. I mean, we take care of our clients, we take care of one another, and we take care of our communities as best we can. And formalizing that and naming it gives it power, gives it momentum, makes it real. So I would encourage I know we have a lot of financial advisors that listen to our program as well. And I appreciate that. I would encourage other firms to think about formalizing their giving program and providing the training that could really, really bring it together and give it the momentum and the additional impact that I think that we're seeing here at Keen for sure. And Carissa, the work that you've been doing, we've had clients, because we do include clients as much as we can in certain events and inviting them to events, not trying to solicit donations from them, but just including them in the work that we're doing and exposing, kind of our thinking around it. And of course, a lot of clients go ahead and do donate, but it's not what we're asking them to attend for. It's really just that bringing that awareness to what we're doing and how we think about it. And so many of the clients have asked, which is why one of the reasons we're doing this show today with this topic is they've asked us, well, we'd like the training. We'd like to understand what a Form 990 is. We'd like to understand how you think about the wages that you pay, that these organizations pay to their employees. I love what you said, Carissa. We don't want to perpetuate a cycle of poverty. Like the initial thought might be, well, we don't want them to pay their employees too much. Well, wait, maybe so on the extreme, but we also don't want them to pay them too little either. We want them to have engaging, productive positions so they can be effective in their roles, in the difference they're making in their communities. So I'm looking forward to folks getting a chance to kind of hear this. We may even do a webinar or a luncheon too, Steve, here, a live luncheon in our beautiful space that we have here, where we bring Carissa in to really walk through that checklist with clients, with friends of the firm and clients, which I think could be hugely impactful as well. Hopefully this is a little teaser for that. Honestly, I think it could be really, really impactful.
Well said there, Bill. And under normal circumstances, I'd let you have the last word. But since we have a special guest today, I want to turn it back over here to Carissa. Any final thought to bring us home here?
Yes, Steve. Something that came to mind during this conversation is that I think it used to be the norm where people waited until the end of their life to do their giving. And now the trend that we're seeing is that it's more meaningful for people to do their giving a lot of times shortly after they retire. It's their time to get involved into the community, and they want to watch their money be put to work. I also think, again, just to hammer in on the point of it's not only your financial resources. Yes, financial resources are important to organizations, but think about how you personally could get involved. And just to give you one more quick example of something that a friend and I did is we were volunteering at the Kansas City Girls Preparatory Academy. It's the only single gender charter school in the Kansas City, Missouri school district. And the school started in 2020. And we realized that they didn't have a working library. They had a couple of thousand books that had been donated, but nothing was happening with these books. My friend and I were part of a vibrant book club, and we said, well, this is a problem. I mean, we're avid readers. We want these girls to also have the opportunity to become avid readers. And so we organized and we did some training for software. We made a restricted gift to the organization, and they were to use that gift to purchase the software. And then we cataloged and organized the books, and we recruited our friends to do it. And now, because of our efforts, the KCGPA, they now have a working library. So just being open to thinking about what are your personal interests and talents, and how can you go share that with other organizations to make a sustainable and lasting impact?
Carissa, you
Well,
were,
Carissa,
Steve, I have to say,
Yeah.
she triggered me here. Not that I'm trying to get the last word, not that I'm trying to do that. But Carissa, you got a nice shout out at the gala last week from Christine Kemper about that very thing, about the library that you and Sandy put together. So that was great. And it also triggers me to think, Steve, she's become a little bit of a celebrity here in Kansas City. As you know, used to be, whether it was Angel Flight or some of the other things, I would get a call and asked to appear on one of the local news stations about a charity to bring awareness to some of the organizations that we support. So I know Carissa appeared with me on Fox 4 on an Angel Flight when we were talking about that gala. But then kind of since then, I've gone by the wayside. They just call Carissa to do their appearances. She was on, I think I might have sent this to you, and a lot of our clients saw it, but she was on with the Happy Bottoms telling her story. She actually told her story from the stage, which speaks to what you just said, Carissa, bringing your skills and talents and being willing to go out and tell stories to spread the word and to spread credibility around these organizations and your experience. She actually spoke from the stage at the gala at Happy Bottoms, and then was reached out to by KMBC9, and they ran a story on her, interviewed her. She's a pro, as you can tell here today. And I believe your story, clips of your interview, ran 90 times in the month of March, this past year. On the news channel. And so I think of those things. Was it monetary? No, but it was you sharing your experience that now is getting spread across to hundreds of thousands of people maybe. And again, that ripple effect that we just we will never know what effect that had on others. And I think that's a great way to consider and kind of tie a bow on what we've been talking about today. So really, really good stuff.
well, Chris and Bill, thank you. Appreciate your time here today and talking about this, and appreciate you and the entire team at Keen Wealth Advisors with all the work that you're doing in the community and all of the Keen clients and
That's
all
right.
of the charitable work that your clients
That's
are
right.
doing as well. So it's one big virtuous circle here. So we appreciate that. And Carissa, you did mention the nonprofit evaluation checklist. We're going to have that on the show notes. So if any of you want to pick that up, you can just simply go to keenwealthadvisors.com and look for the section there on the blog posts and the podcast information. And you can find it there, and we'd be happy for you to download that. So again, guys, thank you. Appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing all of you and hearing from you on the next episode of Keen on Retirement.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Carissa.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Bill.
The Steve Sandusky Advisor Network and Belay Advisor are not affiliated with Keen Wealth Advisors. Opinions expressed by Steve are his own and not necessarily the opinions of Keen Wealth Advisors. Keen Wealth Advisors is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Keen Wealth Advisors and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. The contents of this podcast are intended for the residents of the United States of America. No advice may be rendered by Keen Wealth Advisors unless a client service agreement is in place. This program is intended for informational purposes only and should not be construed as advice on or a recommendation of any particular investment, strategy, or as tax or legal advice for your specific situation. Keen Wealth Advisors is not a tax or legal advisor. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your licensed professional prior to investing. Information in this program was compiled from sources believed to be reliable. Due to the constant state of data changing, we do not guarantee the timeliness or the accuracy of the information provided. Our views or opinions at the time you are listening to the podcast may be different than they were when the podcast was recorded. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. Any prices that are referenced or market forecasts are as of the date stated and are not necessarily our opinions moving forward. As always, please remember, investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. This podcast is not allowed to be copied, distributed, published, or reproduced without permission from Keen Wealth Advisors.